Kyle Shanahan and Jed York talking with reporters about the San Francisco 49ers past, current, and future, and especially that quarterback position. Are Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch in lockstep from their comments at the owners' meetings, and a brand new jersey number coming to an NFL team near you on today's episode of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Nicholas Winkler with you today. Eric Crocker had some emergencies to tend to here during his travels, so this Winky Wednesday edition will not feature Mr. Eric Crocker, but we've got the voice of the fan, my former colleague in radio, former TV sports anchor, Nicholas Winkler, joining us on today's Winky Wednesday, late Tuesday edition of Locked On 49ers.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Yeah, owners meetings. The NFL, so good, Wink. It just dropping little nuggets here. Get a little combine, get a little free agency, get the owners meetings, so you get quotes and you get everybody, head coaches, GMs, and owners together to maybe talk trades. And then you get Lamar Jackson dropping his trade request on the public. He already dropped it on the Baltimore Ravens, and that gets everybody fired up and talking. And big news out of the owners meeting, Wink, before we get started here, because we're going to talk a little bit about the quarterbacks. Talked a lot with Croc yesterday about the quarterbacks. I want to get your thoughts on it and some of the comments made from 49ers brass. But the number 0 is coming. Everybody's there together. What did they decide? They're going to allow people to wear 0. That was right. That was the culmination of this event of owners getting together and all the power brokers of the NFL getting together. What changed? The number 0 gets to be worn now. This from Tom Pelissero. The full proposal that owners approved, allowing any player to wear number 0 except offensive and defensive linemen. Also, punters and place kickers can not only wear 0, they can go all the way up to 49 and wear 90 to 99. So we might get like the college numbers where you get a punter wearing number 99, and you can have somebody like, I don't know, Trey Lance wearing 0, because that's how much respect he gets nowadays from the San Francisco 49ers organization. What do you think? Who wears number 0 for the 49ers, Croc or Wink? I keep calling you Croc. I'm used to having
I expect you to do it the whole show, so I'll just be ready. Just call me Croc. It's fine. And let's be honest, Croc's out doing a victory lap right now. He's the people's champ.
Yes. By the way, the 49ers media bracket, Crocker knocked me off in the opening round. I don't know about the seeding on that one.
That was weird.
But he won the whole thing.
Yeah. You lost to the eventual champ, so that's a good
that's
feeling.
Not bad. Right. That's not bad.
If you're gonna go out, that's a good way to go out. As for number 0, that's an odd thing. I mean, isn't 0 like the absence of numbers? Like, isn't it not actually a number? My math guys out there, let me know. I don't think it's an actual number. I think it. So that's a little weird to me. Somebody's definitely gonna wear it. I think you're gonna see it on every team is gonna have a 0 guy for sure.
Absolutely. So any of our math experts out there at Bay Area Wink on Twitter, let us know if 0 is even a number. It's sort of like the absence of color, right? Is white the absence of color and black is the reflection of all colors, or
all
maybe
colors,
have that backwards?
I think you nailed it. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
And
no, I look forward to see who on the 49ers actually wears 0. It seems like a defensive back number or maybe a wide receiver. But when you talked about kickers and stuff wearing like 90s and stuff, I've always thought that's so hideous. And I hope that it happens. Like, I hope we do see like a 97 as a kicker, like just some random number.
I like it because I think the numbers that everybody wants, and you want your fast guys and your playmakers to have those single digit numbers. So the kickers can wear the ugly numbers, give the kickers whatever 31 or 47 or something, and allow, I like the punters wearing 99. I think it's just funny because, but I want to see the fast guys with the low numbers. And you're right. Like DBs wearing 0 makes a lot of sense just because you want to allow 0 catches, 0 yards, right? Like you're getting nothing on us. I do think the number 1 lends itself well to the offense. The number 0 lends itself to the defensive side of the ball. And by the way, Diamador Lenore, who's looking like he's got a nice little path to being the starting cornerback week 1 for the San Francisco 49ers, he wore number 0 back at Oregon. So I think that's your leader in the clubhouse right now. Talking about a John Lynch quote about Brock Purdy being the leader in the clubhouse for the 49ers starting quarterback. I think leader in the clubhouse for wearing number 0 might be Diamador Lenore.
Yeah, if you got like Vegas lines, he would definitely, you get the least good odds on him to be number 0 there going forward. And just so the Niner fans don't kill me, I said 97 is a weird number. Obviously, 49ers Bryant Young. I know 97 is a great number.
97 is a powerhouse number. It's a weird number for a kicker, though.
Yeah, and that's why I want to see it. Like I want to see something strange, like 91. Like what was he doing?
Quarterback, Wink.
Yes.
What are your thoughts, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan? Because it's the ultimate Rorschach test. I've seen the craziest takes on Twitter and people responding to the recent sort of press conferences or little scrums with John Lynch, now Kyle Shanahan, a little bit of Jed York as well, and their comments. And to me, it sounds like they're all on the same page. And really, it's no different than what we've talked about and what we thought it was. We're just kind of hearing them say it. But do you think there's anything that was weird about it? Do you think there's disrespect to somebody? Do you think there's undue expectations for certain quarterbacks? How do you feel about all of this with all the comments about the 49ers quarterbacks from John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan?
Well, Peacock, I think you said it. I think this is what we knew going in, right? Like they want Brock Purdy to be the starter because he proved it. He went out there, he showed you that he is a starting NFL quarterback that can make the throws. He has, he knows where to go with the football. He knows where not to go with the football. He's got that internal clock, inside of his head that the Kyle Shanahan system needs. And Brock Purdy has shown that he can do that. And so to say that he's the leader in the clubhouse is just obvious. The guy was a stud last year. Trey Lance hasn't been able to stay healthy. That best ability is availability. That always rings true. And you'd love to see Trey Lance go out there and steal this job and become the future that we thought he was going to be, right? We thought Trey Lance, like, yes, this is the guy. We're going to invest our future in this guy, give up a bunch of draft picks. Here we go. But then he hasn't been able to get on the football field. So in order for people to get mad and be like, why aren't they going to give Trey Lance all the reps in the preseason? It's like, because the dude can't stay healthy. Like, you don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? You brought in Sam Darnold to be that security blanket. And if you're not going to give him any snaps in the preseason and with the first team, like, that just doesn't make any sense. That just seems like a bad move for an organization going forward because you don't know if Brock Purdy's going to come back healthy. You don't know if he's going to heal properly. You don't know if that timeline is going to work out exactly how it's set out. There's always setbacks and things like that you have to worry about. So you want to have as many guys ready to go as possible. And, obviously you go with the guy who's done the most for you. You got to give the respect that it's been earned. And Brock Purdy's earned it.
He has earned it with his play on the field, even though it was, less than half a season's work. Sure. And we've seen even less than that of Trey Lance in his 2 years. I'm just interested to see what the guy looks like in camp and in preseason games because Trey Lance is, he's a specimen. He's big and he's fast. He's got a cannon of an arm. And we've seen glimpses of play from him that would lead you to believe that this guy could be a really, really good NFL player, maybe even a star level quarterback. So you have to play that out. You have to see what that is unless a team comes calling. And next week, I want to talk about potential trades with the San Francisco 49ers. If maybe Trey Lance offers could be coming and if the 49ers would consider those. Before we get to that, though, the big takeaway for me, listening to John Lynch talk Monday, then Kyle Shanahan talk Tuesday, is they said basically the same thing, but John Lynch is just like the eternal optimist and like, we're going to go do the best thing and be the best thing and try as hard as we can and have the best people. And then Kyle Shanahan's like this eternal pessimist. And he's like, I don't even know when he's going to be ready. And he's the best quarterback, but I don't know who knows, I don't know
even know if we're going to have a quarterback on Sundays, like they might take away the position. I don't know.
So it's funny because they said the same thing, but they kind of say it a little differently. So I guess that could be why people could misconstrue it. But I think we're in lockstep here with Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, 49ers organization, where they're at with these quarterbacks. And so I think we can spell that out next. And does that mean that one of those guys could potentially be available on the trade market? And could those talks have happened with all these GMs and owners and coaches together at the owners meeting in Arizona this week? Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The tournament heating up and tourney time is the best time. No better place to get in on the action with FanDuel, because right now you can get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back up to $1,000 if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything from money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the net. Tons of prop bets with the tournament, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball. Wink and I are in a fantasy baseball league together. Pumped for that to get going this week as well. So don't miss your shot at a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up and make every moment more with FanDuel. So if I heard this correctly, and Wink, I want to know what you think. What do you think of the 49ers depth chart at quarterback, and how the 49ers feel about all three quarterbacks, and how you think those reps are going to be dispersed based on what you heard? And I don't want to poison you with my take on it and how I feel about it yet. Unless you listen to yesterday's show, you probably know, and I don't think that changed with Kyle Shanahan. But what do you think? What's the depth chart for the 49ers? How's this thing going to play out through camp?
I mean, starting in camp, obviously you give Trey Lance the first snaps, right? I mean, he's your guy. You drafted him. You invested a bunch of capital in him. And Sam Darnold's the new guy on the block. So you give Trey Lance the first few snaps, and then you say, okay, Darnold, come on in, take a few. All right, back to Trey. You know, and if Brock Purdy were healthy, I think it would be a lot different. I think we'd be seeing Brock Purdy out there taking the majority of the snaps, because, again, we talked about it earlier, he's proven it, and they've said it. You know, Lynch came out and said, like, leader in the clubhouse, boom, Brock Purdy, and Kyle kind of backed that up. And they both, there's always that feeling, right, of they don't want to be wrong. Nobody ever wants to be wrong, especially when you've given up a bunch of stuff to get something. Yeah. So, like, with Trey Lance, I think there's that, like, we still got to keep trying this. Like, we really want to make this work because we want to show everybody, look, we were right. We made the right choice. We gave up the right amount of draft picks. And so I think that's always kind of in the back of their heads, and they're going to keep giving Trey Lance the most opportunities to succeed, because we've seen flashes of it. We've seen, like, oh man, imagine him, you know, with Debo and with Ayuk and with Kittle and with Christian McCaffrey. Like, wow, what an offense this could be. So I think they're going to give Trey Lance every opportunity to kind of seize control, especially early in camp. But you saw last year how many quarterbacks they needed. So you got to make sure every guy is ready to go if it does come to that.
Yeah, and I think with the Darnold thing especially, people shouldn't make too much of Darnold being brought in, because I think a lot of it's PTSD. And I think especially with Kyle Shanahan, he sees all the injuries with all his quarterbacks. He's like, I want 3. I want 5. You know, that it's probably how he feels right now based on how that season ended and how his quarterbacks, Jimmy included, have gotten hurt.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any disrespect toward Trey Lance? Do you think there's a possibility that Trey Lance could be traded this offseason if they've already made the decision that Brock Purdy's probably the guy? Would it be that difficult to envision Trey Lance winning the job? Do you think they should try to get out of that now and get something in return from a team that might be on the outside looking in the draft and still looking at a young 22-year-old quarterback and thinking, well, we liked him in the draft and we still like him, so let's give him a shot rather than flipping a coin on one of these other quarterbacks?
I think that's a bit tricky because there's so many quarterbacks in this draft, right? And I still go back to that 49ers wanting to be right about this, where it's just like they're not quite ready to give up on him yet. Plus the PTSD thing from last year about we just need as many quarterbacks as we can have. So why would we trade away a guy that we think it could be the future of this franchise? You know, when it comes to Trey Lance, it feels like if they did trade him away, I mean, you'd never obviously get back anything even close to what you gave up to get the guy, but do you go and try to recoup a little bit of your losses back? Or do you just keep throwing, you know, good money at bad money? And I don't want to call Trey Lance bad money right now, but based on his injury past, it's definitely not looking like good money, right?
It's why I think it's so unlikely that he would get traded. I think it would be much more likely if Brock Purdy wasn't hurt. Then I think they'd be like, well, we have a different guy who kind of won the job. So if a team wants to come calling, you know, we'll trade him. But I think because of the injury stuff, because of still the unknown with like Trey Lance in week 1, there's a very good likelihood that he's your best option to start at quarterback. And that's with him not even getting better, which I would project him to be better than he was last year, just, from being around the game and being around the team more, knowing the offense a little bit better and going through another offseason, going through another camp. And so I don't think they really can trade him, because you can't trade him away and all of a sudden he's great somewhere else and becomes awesome, because he does have that physical ability. And if you're trading him, especially for, like a 3rd round pick or less, you're admitting defeat. You're like, oh, we just believe this guy's a bust, Right. So, and I don't know if a team has seen enough of Trey Lance to offer them what it would take to be like, well, we have to take this, whatever, 1st rounder. I don't know if they're going to get that offer too. Like the most likely thing that I could see where something would match up would be the Colts with another team trading in front of them in the draft. Maybe they only like a couple of quarterbacks. Those guys are gone and they're sitting there at 4. And they're like, well, we can get the best defensive player in the draft and then trade our 2nd round pick, 35 overall. It's a high 2nd round pick for Trey Lance, who we loved pre-draft. He was their blue star player or whatever in that draft. And Chris Ballard, same GM, was there. He loved him. He's still young. Maybe that's something I could see, a high 2nd rounder, maybe being a value that works out. The 49ers see it and they're like, well, we think Brock's going to be the guy anyway, even if we have to wait an extra month into the season and we still have Sam and, we draft a quarterback late to, who knows, maybe it's the next Brock Purdy. So I could see that scenario, but it's going to be hard to find the right value for a team willing to give up a lot. And it's enough for the 49ers to move off of Lance because he still has that huge upside. And you don't want to let another team develop him if you're not completely sure where Brock Purdy is. And maybe that has to be something that happens after the draft, after they've seen the recovery process for Brock Purdy.
Yeah, because I think where the 49ers sit right now is they're not in dire need of draft picks, right? Yeah, they don't have a 1st or a 2nd round pick, but they have all those compensatory picks, right? So it's kind of like they're kind of stocked when it comes to taking chances on guys and kind of throwing draft picks around as like, look, we could try this position, that position. And I think if they weren't in that position, I think there'd be a much higher likelihood that Trey Lance would get traded for a 2nd round pick. I mean, speaking of which, so Peacock, let's put on your GM hat real quick for me. Colts call you. They want to make that trade. Are you making that trade?
I would, right? I would definitely consider it. And I probably wouldn't consider much later than that. And you talked about the picks that the 49ers have, plus they don't have a lot of holes because they've got a really good roster. So I would say the one position you'd be looking at is offensive tackle. You lose Mike McGlinchey. Colton McKivitz was cut before on the 49ers roster and brought back through the practice squad, right? So he's not like, high pedigree player who's penciled in to start at right tackle. The 49ers added journeyman Matt Pryor, who's a really big he could be I think he projects as a backup right tackle probably. He's played a little left tackle, played some guard, sort of, someone that could give you some depth at offensive tackle and help you out there if Colton McKivitz gets hurt or isn't the guy. But I think long-term offensive tackle is a pretty huge need for the 49ers. And if you were able to get a starting caliber guy at offensive tackle, it might be worth it to protect your quarterback that you decided to go with if you believe Brock Purdy's going to be good and come back and be that guy. But you would have to make that determination before the draft, which makes it even more difficult for the 49ers because they won't have that information on Purdy yet. Or maybe they've seen enough from Darnold to be like, well, even if it is an 8-month process instead of a 6-month process, we like Darnold for a couple months. He's shown us enough where we can get by. We'll be fine. And then it'll be Purdy's job. So I think right now, if I knew how they felt truly about both guys, and they're like, dude, Purdy healthy is not going to get beat out by Lance. If that's how they truly believe it, then they should accept that trade and move on. Let another team develop them. And it might be best for Trey Lance too, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like if you're Trey Lance, do you want to be traded?
Right. Because right now, you're like, okay, they're telling me I'm going to get half the first team reps. And then this guy who's not even going to be in camp is the leader in the clubhouse when he comes back. Like, so no matter how well I do, I still have Brock Purdy looking over my shoulder, right? So that's got to be tough for Trey Lance. I agree with you. Would it be best for Trey Lance to go somewhere else? Probably. As a 49er fan, do you want him to go somewhere else? Probably not. You know what happened last year? Beating quarterbacks.
Two parts to that. One, from the Colts perspective, too. It's like, if I'm the Colts, I would much rather have Will Anderson, basically their version of the next Nick Bosa, basically, a pass rushing defensive end to build your defense around, and Trey Lance with a 2nd round pick who's still 22 years old, than Will Levis, who's already 22 years old, I think, and is as much or more of a coin flip there and not more physically talented than Trey Lance is. That's a no-brainer for me. If I'm the Colts, I would do that. And I would maybe even say, okay, here's a conditional future pick as well.
There you go.
If Trey Lance goes crazy, here's something else too. Yeah, maybe that's what needs to happen is conditional stuff with Trey Lance. Is if he becomes good and starts 17 games and he's a dude, and all of a sudden you're in the playoffs with Trey Lance, that give me some ones. Don't give me twos, give me ones. So maybe a future conditional pick is what needs to happen as it pertains to Trey Lance. But the 49ers have their picks back next year, so they would probably want something now and in this draft and start to get that ball rolling. So it starts to get very difficult when you put all that together. One more note here on Trey Lance before we get to the 49ers' newest kicker that they traded for, Zane Gonzalez. It's supposed to be the big story this week, but we got all these quotes and stuff from the owners' meetings. The Brock Purdy thing. If you do put all your eggs in the Brock Purdy basket, we know who he is. We've seen him play so well, but the 49ers offense has so many weapons too. Like, are we sitting here in 2 years, or are we sitting here, Brock Purdy comes back before the 2024 draft, 2025 draft, whatever it is, and everyone feels the same way about Purdy as they felt about Garoppolo? It's like, well, he's really good, but he's not like special. He doesn't have, you go see these, you go play against Patrick Mahomes, you go play against Josh Allen, and these guys have special ability. And Brock Purdy's a really good quarterback, but he doesn't have that. Are you then the Niners in a couple of years being like, cool, we got Kirk Cousins, but we want to get better than that? So you're still looking for something better who's physically much more like Trey Lance, right? So, and then are you in the draft again looking for a quarterback? So I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Brock Purdy to know exactly where that ceiling is, but he played so well. I could see why the 49ers were like, well, this is good. This is great. Just give me that. Like, please, just that level of quarterback play, we'll be in a great spot, right? But it's still not the level. I think Brock Purdy's ceiling is probably not the level that they were hoping they were going to get when they drafted Trey Lance. That was the point of moving up for someone like Trey Lance.
And does, hitting on a guy like Trey Lance so late in the draft, like, affect the 49ers hubris, right? Where there's like, look, we'll deal with this guy in a couple of years, we'll just get another young guy and keep these small quarterback contracts, right? Where they can then throw money everywhere else, and they don't have to go out and sign a big name guy or bring in a big free agent or give somebody a bunch of money. They're like, okay, cool. Thanks, Brock. It's been real. We got this other 6th round draft pick that we think's ready to go.
And it's so amazing how the effort and the trading up and the trading for Jimmy and then giving Jimmy his big contract and all the work they've done at quarterback. They're like, oh, look what we found between the couch cushions. The very last pick in the draft. Hey, we got a franchise quarterback. And it's like how all the work that you put in scouting and doing all this stuff, and their best picks are the last pick of the draft. And a bunch of 5th rounders, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so and a 6th rounder in Elijah Mitchell. Like, they really live at the end of the draft. So going forward, it's like, what were they thinking with Trey Lance? Like, Nick Bosa, sure, he was a no miss guy. That was an easy draft pick. But the Trey Lance thing was risky, and they took a risk and they put it all out there, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So it's hard to say if that's been. I mean, obviously, right now it's not a good draft pick because you've gotten almost no return for what you've given up for this guy. But there's always that like, oh, maybe. But then how long do you live with maybe, right? You need to get something back. And with Brock Purdy, that was an immediate return of like no investment. Like, okay, 49ers, what do we do next?
If Brock Purdy truly is back close to week 1 at some point, and it's his job, and Trey Lance is the backup, well, now Trey Lance has no value. So you're not getting that 2nd round pick anymore for Trey Lance. You probably just have to cut him after this season, or just he's a backup until his contract expires. But his contract's kind of extend. They make $9 million a year. You're not going to want to keep him around. Probably you might then try to maybe someone trades for. Well, they wouldn't want to pay him $9 million either. Maybe if they his value just
goes. Here's the thing, as the voice of the fan here for the 49ers, what we just went through and just what we've seen the past 6-7 years as 49er fans, you need multiple quarterbacks. Like, one quarterback's not going to make it through that whole season. And so unless Sam Darnold comes in and just kind of, blows your socks off, then it's just like, okay, we should probably keep Trey Lance. We should probably keep him around even if, Purdy comes in. Okay, here's a fun question to pose to you. Let's say Brock Purdy's not ready for week 1. Let's say he's ready week 3, but Trey Lance is just balling out week 1, balling out week 2. You don't give that job to Brock Purdy, do you?
Absolutely
Week
not.
3?
No way. No way.
You can't.
Nope.
You
That's
just
exactly what
can't
needs
do
to happen for Trey Lance and for the 49ers to be their ultimate best would be that Trey Lance shows over the course of the summer, maybe the beginning of the season, that he's actually better than Brock Purdy. That's the best path for the 49ers. Makes them the best.
Yeah, I agreed.
And then it's like, cool. And we got a good cheap backup in Brock Purdy.
Yeah, boom.
And Sam Darnold then gets cut. I don't know.
Practice
He hangs
squad.
around just in case everybody gets hurt again. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I heard that they shelved that third quarterback thing at the owner meeting, that it's kind of just not going to be talked about right now, that they're like, we're not going to worry about having that third quarterback.
You just have to carry them all. You can't have the emergency thing. Yeah. So, and the Niners are going to do that. They'll carry.
It seems weird for a league that talks so much about health and safety and how important it is to everybody. It's like, we're going to give you the minimum amount of guys that you can possibly have.
And the product. I can't imagine the league wants a game like what we saw in the NFC Championship game. Nobody wants that. No. You got to have a capable quarterback ready to come in. It's weird. Next, Wink. Talk a little bit about some of the moves the 49ers have made, including getting themselves a kicker, since you are our special teams specialist here on Locked On 49ers. Next. Today's episode brought to you by Built Bar. It is Built March Madness. The bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, so now's the time to make it count and go to BuiltMarchMadness.com to vote for your favorite bar. Wink, do you have a favorite flavor of Built Bar? I'm a peanut butter guy through and through. I know the peanut butter brownie is in the bracket. That would get my vote. Are you a puff guy? Are you a bar guy?
I was going to say, anything with the marshmallow in it, give it to me.
You're the marshmallow puff. See, I go the original bars. Wink and Croc both love the puffs. And now it's your turn, all the listeners, to support your team, support your bar or puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. And not only that, one Locked On listener will get a 12-month subscription to Built to have Built's best bars or puffs delivered monthly straight to your door. So you got to try Built. It's the best protein bar ever. High in protein, low in sugar, low in calories, and unreal flavors. So run to BuiltMarchMadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box. While you're there, you can vote every day in March. So hop on in and support your pick. Zane Gonzalez. The Robbie Gould era is officially over, Wink, and Zane Gonzalez has been traded brought in for a swap of conditional draft picks in the future for Zane Gonzalez. And the best part of probably all of the quotes from John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan at the owners' meetings was John Lynch saying, in response to Zane Gonzalez, we made a move at kicker. we made a move. It's like,
period. Like, I don't. Let's move on.
And with those conditional picks, I'm guessing Zane Gonzalez, if he doesn't make the squad, the Niners don't give up anything in the future for him. So that was basically a free kicker, and if he sticks, you're giving up a late round pick. I think it was a swap of 5th or 7th round picks or something like that in the future. So maybe it's Zane Gonzalez. He's coming off an injury last year with the Panthers. Steve Wilkes, maybe said some good things about him. Veteran kicker. It's funny because running backs are like ancient by the time they're in their late 20s. Kickers don't even start kicking good until they're in their 30s. Like the kickers are weird. Like I saw a stat recently. I think it was Jordan Elliott of Niners Nation that was, talking about drafted kickers. And I think 1 out of the last 17 kickers that were drafted got a second contract with the team that drafted him. Like, can you think of a longtime kicker that just got drafted by a team and he just stayed on that team? It doesn't happen.
Janikowski was the last one, right?
Yeah,
like,
there you go. And when was he drafted? Like 1999 or something?
So long ago. No, it's one of those things where you got to have somebody on the roster, right? And so, like you said, it's probably a Wilkes move. It made sense. They're going to bring in probably an undrafted guy that to go for the, to push Zane Gonzalez. They might even go after another veteran to bring into camp and just kind of let him kick it out, right?
Yeah, and I like what the 49ers are doing right now. There's not going to be any big contracts or big free agent moves. I don't think they're going to come before the draft. Maybe in the summer before camp, they realize, okay, we need somebody else at this spot, and they bring somebody in who's still out there on a short-term deal or something like that. But what they're doing right now is they're just kind of like putting putty in all the nail holes in their wall right before they really paint it, because they need to have things set up before the draft where they don't have to go. Like I don't want to see the 49ers sitting there with no kicker on draft day and they're like, oh, we like this kicker the most and we don't have a pick until the 5th round, so we got to spend one of these 3rd round picks on him just because we can't risk it. We want to get the kicker we like the most. And so now they don't have to do that. They have a kicker. They brought in Matt Pryor, so it gives them some depth on the offensive line. John Feliciano gives them some depth on the offensive line. So they don't have to force a tackler or an offensive lineman at pick 99 if the right guy's not there. They can maneuver around, make the draft work for them, but they have their needs, even though they need more and they're going to draft more players and they're going to add, 10 or 11 more guys, depending on if they trade up and lose a couple of those picks. But they got 11 draft picks. They're going to add competition, add some players to the roster, but they're adding bodies to the roster in a way that some of these guys might not even make the roster. Some of these guys might play a big role for the 49ers, but they're making it so their needs are kind of set and they can attack a little best player available more so than just go strictly need and maybe make mistakes in the draft, which is where a lot of mistakes get made.
Yeah, I think you hit the head, the nail right on the head with that one. And, as a 49er fan, I just want to give a shout out to Robbie Gould. Like that was an amazing run he had with the 49ers. It was such a nice feeling to just know that when he came out there, like, he's going to make it, and yeah, he didn't make all of them, but he made the big ones. He made the ones that counted for the 49ers throughout his entire tenure with San Francisco. So there's going to be some hard shoes to fill. And hopefully they find a guy that's not, just as consistent, because that's an important part of the game.
There was a lot of responses to that Zane Gonzalez trade and the Robbie Gould stuff. It was more so fear of, oh my gosh, am I going to have to sweat that out in a playoff game with a rookie kicker lining up for a game-winning kick?
It's a solid question that needs to be asked.
Yeah.
Because Gould was there. You knew it.
I will say Robbie Gould was really good and a solid kicker for a long time in the league and a long time for the 49ers. But the real talent was Tabor Pepper long snapping to Mitch Wishnowski's holds.
It's all about the hold. Really,
you can't be making all those kicks without the great snap and the great hold.
Who got the big contract? Did they re-sign Gould? No, they re-signed Wishnowski.
And Tabor Pepper got his long-term deal,
right?
Yeah. So there you go.
You just put it there. It's like what did the Baltimore Ravens kicker say? It's like you practice enough and it's all there. The ball practically kicks itself. You get Paper and Wishnowski putting it down. Anybody can kick it through the uprights.
Right. Put Wink out there in the number 0 and he can make those goals.
No, 97. I want to.
That's right.
He'll let me wear it.
It'll absolutely. Wink, thanks for joining the show and filling in for Eric Crocker. All the love to Croc, and hope everything's good with him and in his travels. And I'm sure he will be back with us tomorrow on the podcast. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen. And Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.
See ya.